On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, one of the most iconic and enigmatic figures of the 20th century, died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on May 19, 1994, at the age of 64. Her passing was peaceful, surrounded by loved ones in her Manhattan apartment. Though her death was due to natural causes, the symbolism of her life and its graceful conclusion reflected a woman who endured profound public and private loss, while embodying a timeless elegance and resilience that resonated deeply with the American psyche. As First Lady during John F. Kennedy's presidency, Jacqueline Kennedy captivated the nation with her poise, fashion, and devotion to culture and history. Her White House restoration project, televised tour, and fluency in several languages redefined the role of First Lady from ceremonial spouse to cultural ambassador. However, it was the tragic assassination of her husband in 1963, an event in which she was a direct witness, that cemented her in the collective memory as a symbol of dignity in grief. That singular moment transformed her from a political figure's wife into an emblem of endurance amid chaos. Her death in the mid-1990s evoked waves of nostalgia and sorrow. To many, she represented the last living thread to the mythos of Camelot, the idyllic image of a youthful, hopeful America that the Kennedy presidency came to represent. Her passing closed a chapter not only in political history, but in the nation's emotional narrative of the post-war era. In life, she had shielded her children and her private world from public intrusion. In death, that privacy was respected, and the nation mourned in reflection rather than spectacle. Jackie's legacy is immortalized through countless biographies, documentaries, films, and museum exhibits. Her influence on fashion and public diplomacy continues to inspire First Ladies and public figures around the globe. More profoundly, she is remembered for her commitment to the preservation of history and her belief in the power of aesthetics to shape national identity. Jacqueline Kennedy's life and death illuminate the way we intertwine personal tragedy with national memory. They remind us that figures in power are not immune to mortality, but that how they face loss, love, and legacy shapes how we remember them. Through solemn tributes and cultural reverence, Jackie remains not just a figure of beauty and grace, but a touchstone for how we process grief and preserve greatness. Andy Rourke, the gifted bassist of the seminal English rock band The Smiths, passed away on May 19, 2023, at the age of 59 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. His death, though natural, struck a somber chord across generations of music lovers who associated his melodic bass lines with the soundscape of 1980s alternative rock. Rourke's death reflects not only the quiet toll of illness, but also the fading presence of artists who helped redefine a genre and gave voice to a restless, searching youth. As part of the Smiths, Rourke played a crucial yet often understated role. His distinctive, fluid bass lines anchored many of the band's most memorable tracks, such as This Charming Man and Barbarism Begins at Home, infusing post-punk melancholy with surprising energy and warmth. The Smiths, though short-lived as a group, became a defining act of their era, combining poetic lyricism, jangly guitars, and rhythmic complexity to articulate alienation, class frustration, and unrequited longing. Rourke's death prompted tributes from fans, musicians, and cultural critics alike. Many highlighted how his contributions, while sometimes overshadowed by the drama surrounding bandmates Morrissey and Johnny Marr, were essential to the group's enduring legacy. His passing reignited appreciation for the artistry often hidden in the rhythm section, reminding the world that subtlety and craftsmanship could be just as revolutionary as flamboyance. Unlike the tragic, violent ends met by some of his contemporaries, Rourke's death came quietly, a reflection perhaps of his own temperament. Humble, private, yet deeply influential. It occurred in a time when nostalgia for the authenticity and introspection of the 1980s is resurging. As vinyl records return and younger generations rediscover bands like the Smiths, Rourke's role has gained renewed recognition, positioning him as both a relic and a revival figure. Rourke's legacy is immortalized in music, a medium where time folds in on itself. Through reissues, documentaries, and digital tributes, his artistry continues to resonate. His passing reminds us of how mortality intersects with memory. While the body fades, the resonance of creativity lingers. In honoring artists like Rourke, we reaffirm not just their impact on culture, but the human yearning to connect, to endure, and to be heard long after the final note. T.E. Lawrence, more famously known as Lawrence of Arabia, died on May 19, 1935, as a result of a motorcycle accident near his home in Dorset, England. At just 46 years old, Lawrence lost control of his Bro Superior SS 100, then one of the fastest motorcycles on the road, while swerving to avoid two young cyclists. He was thrown from the bike and never regained consciousness, dying 6 days later from head injuries. His death was accidental but laden with symbolism, reflecting both the turbulence of his life and the restless energy of the interwar period. Lawrence's passing was immediately felt across Britain and beyond. As a celebrated war hero, intelligence officer, and author, he had been mythologized in both military and literary circles. His exploits during World War I, particularly his leadership in the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire, were immortalized in his own words through the autobiographical 7 Pillars of Wisdom. Yet he remained an enigmatic figure, famed and reluctant, admired and uncomfortable with his own legend. His death underscored the changing values of the early 20th century. The heroism of Lawrence belonged to a romanticized version of warfare, one rapidly fading in the aftermath of World War I and amid the rise of mechanized conflict and political realignment. The interwar years were filled with disillusionment, and Lawrence, who rejected power, honors, and public life in favor of anonymity in the Royal Air Force under a pseudonym, seemed to embody the tension between personal conviction and public expectation. The immediate consequence of his death was a resurgence of fascination with his life. The British public mourned a man they barely understood, while scholars and political observers speculated on what he might have become had he lived. Winston Churchill famously called his death an irreparable loss. T.E. Lawrence's legend has since been amplified through art, literature, and film, most notably the 1962 epic Lawrence of Arabia, which cemented his image in the public imagination. His life and death reveal the human desire to seek meaning in loss, and to elevate figures who straddle the line between myth and reality. Through storytelling and remembrance, society ensures that such figures do not simply vanish into history, but continue to echo across generations, embodying ideals, contradictions, and the complexity of mortality itself. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII and mother of Queen Elizabeth I, met a violent and politically charged end on May 19, 1536. Executed by beheading at the Tower of London, her death marked one of the most infamous moments in English history, deeply entwined with the upheavals of the English Reformation and the volatile dynamics of Tudor court politics. Charged with adultery, incest, and treason, Anne's trial was widely seen as a sham, her fall engineered by her enemies, including Thomas Cromwell, to make way for Henry's next marriage to Jane Seymour. Her death reflected the absolute power of monarchy in a time when the whims of a king could overturn lives and laws. The Tudor court was a place where ambition, rivalry, and survival were often entangled, and Anne, once a symbol of triumph, quickly became a victim of the very system she had helped reshape. Her rise and fall mirrored the precarious position of women in power, especially those who challenged traditional roles or failed to produce a male heir. Her inability to give Henry a son became a fatal flaw in the eyes of a king desperate for dynastic security. The immediate consequences of Anne's execution were both personal and political. Henry married Jane Seymour just days later, signaling the swift erasure of Anne's influence. However, her death did not eliminate her legacy. Her daughter, Elizabeth, would go on to become one of England's greatest monarchs. In this way, Anne's execution did not end her impact on history. It helped shape it. Over the centuries, Anne Boleyn has been reimagined in countless ways. As a martyr, a schemer, a feminist icon, and a tragic queen. Her story has been immortalized in plays, novels, films, and television series, each version reflecting the concerns of its time. This evolving portrayal underscores how society continuously seeks meaning in past lives and deaths, projecting contemporary values onto historical figures. Anne's death reveals much about humanity's relationship with power, mortality, and memory. We are drawn to figures who die unjustly, especially those who challenge the status quo. Through storytelling and commemoration, Anne Boleyn remains alive in the cultural imagination, not simply as a queen who lost her head, but as a woman whose life and death reshaped a kingdom. Jim Otto, the legendary center for the Oakland Raiders, passed away on May 19, 2024, at the age of 86. His death was due to natural causes, though it followed decades of physical hardship endured during and after his career in professional football. Otto's life and death tell a larger story about the cost of athletic greatness, the evolution of American sports culture, and the shifting attitudes toward player health and legacy. Otto played in the American Football League, AFL, and later the NFL from 1960 to 1974, appearing in 210 consecutive games and earning the nickname Mr. Raider. His durability on the field became both his trademark and his burden. Known for playing through pain, Otto underwent over 70 surgeries during his lifetime, including the eventual amputation of his right leg due to infection from old football injuries. His body became a testament to the brutal demands of a pre-modern era of football, before advances in player safety, equipment standards, and concussion protocols became priorities. The challenges Otto faced reflected a time when toughness and sacrifice were valorized above all in American sports. His career overlapped with the rise of the NFL as a cultural institution in the U.S., when players were seen as warriors, often at the expense of their long-term well-being. Otto never complained about his suffering. Instead, he wore his injuries like badges of honor, a perspective both admired and critiqued in today's conversations about athlete welfare. The immediate response to Otto's passing was one of reverence and respect. Tributes poured in from across the football world, celebrating him not only as a player, but as a foundational figure in Raiders history and the AFL-NFL merger. His death did not necessarily shift the trajectory of sports history, but it did serve as a poignant reminder of how far professional football has come and how much it has cost its pioneers. Otto is immortalized in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, in documentaries, and in the memory of fans who view him as the embodiment of grit. His life, and now his death, prompt reflection on the price of glory and the evolving role of athletes in society. In honoring Otto, we also examine how memory, resilience, and physical sacrifice continue to shape the mythos of modern sports heroes. Phyllis Avery, a stage and screen actress of mid-20th century America, passed away on May 19, 2011, at the age of 88 from natural causes in Los Angeles. Though her death was not dramatic or publicized on a grand scale, it closed a chapter in the story of women in Hollywood's transitional years, an era balancing domestic ideals with rising aspirations for independence and career longevity. Avery rose to prominence in the 1950s, a period deeply marked by traditional gender roles in both society and film. Best known for her television role as the supportive wife in Meet Mr. McNutley opposite Ray Milland, Avery's screen presence epitomized the post-war ideal of the all-American woman, elegant, nurturing, and composed. Yet off-screen, Avery was navigating a changing industry that offered limited roles to aging actresses, especially those who had been cast primarily as wives or love interests. The circumstances of her death, quiet and natural, long after the height of her fame, mirror the often unseen fade-out experienced by many women in Hollywood who, though once celebrated, were quietly retired from the screen as new faces emerged. Her departure underscored the entertainment industry's shifting dynamics, from the golden age of television to the more diversified media landscape of the 21st century, where legacies are more readily rediscovered through digital archives and streaming services. While Avery's death did not cause a seismic cultural shift, it invited appreciation for the unsung heroines of television's formative years. The immediate consequence was a wave of retrospectives by classic film enthusiasts who sought to preserve her memory and reevaluate the impact of performers often overshadowed by more iconic figures. Her legacy lives on in the broader narrative of women in media, both as a cautionary tale of the industry's fickleness and as a tribute to quiet professionalism. Through film festivals, retrospectives, and online film forums, figures like Avery are increasingly commemorated for their contributions to the craft and to the shaping of cultural values. Her death highlights how mortality intersects with fame, especially for those whose influence was subtle rather than sensational. In remembering Phyllis Avery, we reflect on how cultural memory often favors the loudest voices, yet finds room, over time, to honor the steady ones that helped build the foundation. Robert Webber, a versatile American actor known for his commanding presence in both film and television, died of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, on May 19, 1989, at the age of 64. His death, from a neurodegenerative illness that slowly robs its victims of voluntary muscle control, was a poignant reflection of the human vulnerability often concealed behind Hollywood's polished facade. Webber, who frequently portrayed confident military men, slick executives, or cynical professionals, faced his terminal condition with the quiet dignity that defined much of his career. Webber came to prominence during an era that prized masculinity, professionalism, and control, attributes often found in the Cold War and post-World War II cultural ethos. His roles in films like 12 Angry Men and The Sandpiper represented a type of mid-century man who embodied authority and sophistication. The contrast between these robust screen personas and his real-life struggle with ALS underscored the era's reluctance to confront weakness or disease publicly. In a time before widespread awareness of ALS, Webber's diagnosis remained largely out of the public eye, echoing a generation that valued stoicism over vulnerability. The immediate aftermath of his passing did not generate front-page headlines, but his absence was felt deeply within the entertainment community. He was remembered not only for his wide-ranging roles, but also for his professionalism and adaptability in an industry often driven by typecasting. While his death didn't shift historical tides, it did quietly reinforce a broader conversation about the often overlooked character actors who support and elevate cinematic storytelling. In the years since, Webber's legacy has been kept alive through the enduring relevance of the films and television shows he helped shape. Classic film aficionados continue to rediscover his performances, especially as platforms make mid-20th century cinema more accessible. His work reminds us that immortality in the arts is often earned not through superstardom, but through consistency, craftsmanship, and subtle impact. Weber's death invites reflection on mortality and memory, how even those who dwell just outside the spotlight shape the cultural landscape. We honor such figures not with statues or state funerals, but with retrospectives, rewatchings, and renewed appreciation for their contributions. Through this, Robert Weber endures not as a symbol of power, but of enduring artistic presence. Ogden Nash, the beloved American poet celebrated for his whimsical rhymes and satirical wit, died of complications from Crohn's disease on May 19, 1971, at the age of 68. His passing marked the end of an era in American light verse, an era where humor was often used to deflate pretension, critique social norms, and illuminate the absurdities of daily life. Nash's death was quiet and natural, yet it resonated deeply with a literary community that cherished his unique voice, one that stood apart from the often solemn tone of 20th century American poetry. Nash rose to prominence during the Great Depression and continued writing through World War II and into the turbulence of the 1960s. His clever verse, often published in The New Yorker, provided not only laughter but subtle commentary on the idiosyncrasies of American life. In a century filled with political upheaval, existential dread, and rapid modernization, Nash's accessible humor offered readers a gentle mirror through which to view themselves. His death, therefore, represented more than the loss of a man. It signaled a fading cultural appetite for literary levity in an increasingly serious and polarized world. Though Nash's passing did not shake the nation in the way a statesman's or revolutionary's might, it was deeply felt in literary circles. His legacy was not one of seismic cultural shifts, but of persistent influence. His style can still be seen in contemporary children's literature, advertising, and even political commentary. He proved that verse could be both smart and silly, timely yet timeless. The way we remember Nash speaks volumes about humanity's approach to memory and legacy. While he is not often the subject of grand memorials, his poems continue to circulate, especially among readers who seek delight in language. His wit is immortalized in anthologies, educational syllabi, and countless social media quotes. Proof that humor, when masterfully wielded, outlives even the most somber headlines. Nash's life and death remind us that cultural power can come not only from bold political acts or artistic revolutions, but from the steady heartbeat of clever, joyful expression. In a world that often valorizes tragedy, his enduring popularity highlights our need to also cherish lightness, reminding us that laughter, too, can leave a lasting mark on history. Ronald Coleman, the suave British actor whose voice and poise defined a golden era of cinema, passed away from acute emphysema on May 19, 1958, at the age of 67. His death, while natural, marked the end of an era that revered refined elegance and quiet heroism, qualities Coleman embodied both on and off the screen. In an age increasingly drawn to method acting and grittier realism, Coleman's passing symbolized a changing of the guard in Hollywood, where polished sophistication gave way to raw, emotional intensity. Coleman had become a cinematic icon in the 1920s and 1930s, transitioning from silent films to talkies with rare success due to his richly mellifluous voice and impeccable diction. Roles in films like A Tale of Two Cities, Lost Horizon, and Random Harvest cemented his image as the gentleman hero, stoic, tragic, and deeply human. As television began to overtake film in the 1950s and new stars like Marlon Brando and James Dean rose to prominence, Coleman's style seemed increasingly rooted in a bygone era. His death served as a poignant reminder of a Hollywood that prized restraint and nobility, both in performance and persona. The immediate consequences of his passing were felt most keenly in the film community, where he was remembered not just for his acting talent, but for his professionalism and quiet dignity. There was no scandal, no bitter final act, just a graceful exit, much like his performances. While Coleman's death did not alter the course of global events, it did mark the passing of an ideal, the actor as gentleman and the hero as moral compass. Over time, Ronald Coleman has been immortalized less through statues or grand tributes, and more through continued reverence among film historians and classic cinema aficionados. His influence echoes in portrayals of principled protagonists and in the enduring value placed on voice and presence in film. Ultimately, Coleman's passing reflects humanity's nostalgia for nobility, a longing not only for figures who entertain, but who elevate. In remembering him, we engage with a broader cultural yearning for grace under pressure, for charm untainted by cynicism. His legacy, captured on celluloid and echoed in critical praise, reminds us that memory often favors those who carry their greatness with quiet humility.